Good evening. Welcome to the September 12th board meeting of the Foxborough Planning Board. This meeting will be broadcast live and recorded by Foxborough Cable Access. There may also be people who Zoom in if necessary to give information on tonight's meeting. And without further ado, we will proceed. Any updates?
Sure, several. We are, sorry, I'm going to move back a little bit because I think this is a little loud. We're just one item away from having a live site for planning board applications through Permitize. We're just waiting on payment integration. We want our finance folks to chat with the software firm. That way we can get the kind of infrastructure we need on that end. MBTA Communities, I did attach a slide set, and then I decided to completely restructure it. So what was attached was changed. We did present 4 different options of just areas within the half-mile radius last night. And we got some good feedback, a lot of really good comments, and it seems like I'll be running some numbers in terms of both cost of services as well as revenues from option 3 and 4 in that. So I'll send you all an updated one via email. I apologize for not having done that today. Master plan, we've received 4 proposals, one from Fisher Associates, one from Weston and Sampson, one from VHB, and one from Barrett. So we'll be scoring these proposals. Next Friday, we're going to meet to discuss our scoring and the next steps with however many candidates we decide to either interview with or contract with. In terms of economic development, we are still updating some of the legacy materials that need a little bit of a tweak in the post-COVID era. And we're also going to be, I have a goal to start it in early 2025. There's a little too much on my plate right now to update the business development guide. That way I can communicate with all of the department heads and make sure that that information is accurate, get a quote from our current town manager instead of the previous one in there, and hopefully have a nice presentation that's easy to follow. In 131 Morse Street, which is one of our industrial properties, one of the contaminated sites, there is an interested industrial developer that is trying to reach out to us right now. They're just waiting on one of their team to make another appointment with us, so hopefully we can get some movement on that and restore that property to good use. Schneider Electric received permits this week for the demolition of the buildings on Neponset Avenue. Again, they will be preserving the most historic of the buildings, but the post-war buildings that are unsuitable for modern industrial practice and yet no longer usable by them, they're going to be demolished over the course of the next several months. They're hoping to finish that up by early next year and then sell the land. I don't have any more information from them about who any buyer might be. They just keep telling us that they want to focus on the demolition first and then what comes next. And finally, we're still waiting on legislative action to release the State Hospital Auditorium to the town. We're hopeful we can get it done in the off season for the legislature, but we have no updates as of now.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Please.
Yep. Catherine, just one comment on your grant eligibility grid. And if that's going to be redone, fine. Perhaps it would be helpful to have a column that would give maybe a 3-year average of those grants that we actually have applied for and received.
Okay.
So, I mean, I'm not sure that
Yeah, that
the
would be
max
helpful.
award grid is particularly helpful.
Sure. No, I did that because residents specifically requested to know like what the ceiling
Right.
was. I can certainly go back and, I mean, the problem is I don't have necessarily the knowledge of where all the different files and folders
Sure.
might be
Yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
address it, but I'll do my best to research that.
Yeah, thank you.
A quick question. Who did our last master plan?
That was,
McCabe and Associates.
yep, McCabe, yeah.
Okay, and they're not participating in the process?
They didn't submit a proposal.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. We have a little bit of time left. Any other open items that need to be discussed? Any subdivisions or?
We can move on to the action items. I did receive 2 reports today from Lancer Priori for construction going on at Lawson Farm. They're doing the the curbing, the granite curbing is being installed at the entrance of the subdivision. Remember, we had a meeting and discussed that, so they are progressing. And also on Eisenhower Lane on Rich Road, they started doing the drainage installation. So Lance said that he's stopping by every other day pretty much to see what's going on. And he's trying to be more diligent in taking photos and sending it to us for reports. So those subdivisions are progressing.
Okay,
Want to do the minutes?
sure.
Jeff, you good with the minutes?
I am.
Or, I'll make a motion to accept, to approve the minutes from June 27th, 2024 and August 22nd, 2024.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You also have in front of you an A&R plan that was submitted by Bay Colony Group. I took the liberty of coloring the plan to show you the new parcel that's being created.
Awesome
It's a
job.
thank you. I went to drafting school for that. They are cutting out a small parcel of the neighbor's land to be combined with parcel 15. The reason for this is that they need that extra area in their lot to be able to have 3 residential units by right.
In parcel 15?
Parcel 15, yes.
Which one's parcel 15?
So to have enough area for 3 residential units, they would have to have an area of 38,400 square feet.
So it clearly delineates parcel 14, and so where are we missing where parcel 15 is on that drawing?
It's to the left.
It's a,
Okay, there,
Yep.
okay, I got it now. Thank you.
Well, that's creative.
it is very creative.
Do we have,
So are they going to demolish the existing, structures, or we don't know?
I don't know. No, we don't know that.
we don't need to vote on that, do we?
Um,
We need to vote on that?
Yes.
Okay.
What's
not your
that
neck of the
corner
woods.
owned by the
Whose
town
house
of
was that?
Foxborough?
I'm sorry, what?
Whose house was that?
I don't know. I don't know who the owner of that
Which
is.
one?
Gabby, right in the corner of that lot, this little area, it says town of Foxborough.
I don't know.
We're going to have to take a field trip.
It's right there at the corner there.
It looks like it's like a stone wall kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right.
One motion.
I wonder if that's the little area there where they used to keep the cattle. That's been redone a couple of times, right there.
Yes. Yeah,
I
okay.
think that's what that might be.
That must be pre my time, because
Yeah.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
The stray cabin that got rounded up. Yep.
Okay, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the A&R for 26 and 30 Granite Street.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We have a plan for everybody to sign. We can do that at the end of the meeting. And, yeah. Mr. Spillane is here for 3139 South Street.
Good evening. Thank you. Share. Yeah, we'll share.
Good evening.
How are you?
Representative Attorney Frank Splain, representing 3139 South Street LLC. It's the owner of 3135 and 3739 South Street. With me this evening also is James McClure, who's manager of the LLC. We're here requesting a waiver from site plan review for the alteration of off-street parking for both properties. And as well as conversion of 3 garages at 3739 Street into 3 one-bedroom apartments. As you all know, I'm sure, it's right across the street here. Used to be owned by the Lynch family. We're also here requesting approval of a landscape plan that we've provided you for both of those properties. And that's a requirement under ZBA approval that we've received for the property. Again, 3139 South Street LLC purchased the property back in March of 2023 and has since totally renovated the interior. Really got it down to the bones and renovated both buildings, the interior. The owners then wanted to continue with the renovation with the exterior and with the parking and the landscaping, as well as add 3 apartments where the garages are right now. The garages aren't really garages as you would think, parking. It's really was used for maintenance. And they want to improve the look of that area as well as the whole building. So in order to continue the rehabilitation of the building, the exterior and the parking, as well as the conversions, we had to apply with the ZBA for approval. As I'm sure all of you know, those buildings were built in the early 1900s, and therefore they're pre-existing non-conforming on pretty much everything. You know, distance from the street, from each other, side yards, rear yards, lot area, pretty much everything, including the parking. Parking is a pre-existing non-conforming use because they pretty much park anywhere and everywhere. There's no striping, no lines, no nothing. So we had to go in front of the ZBA to get the approval to alter the pre-existing non-conforming to what is there now and what we're proposing. And you have copies of those parking plans, which we've shown you before. We also had to get approval in order to convert the garages to one-bedroom apartments. So in that decision that allowed both of those, we got that approval. Again, in that approval, it conditioned us coming in front of this board. So we indicated we'd be coming in front of the board in order to get the waiver for site plan, to get the landscaping plan approval, because the ZBA really doesn't do that, and they wanted to get the sign off from you. So again, we're asking for the waivers for site plan. Section 10.5.4.1, the zoning bylaw allows the planning board to waive site plan review for any addition of less than 1,000 square feet to an existing building. Again, there'll be no addition. We're going to be changing the interior of the building, the 3 garages, into one-bedroom apartments on each of them. We're also going to be changing the existing parking area by, tearing it up and putting new pavement down, extending it a little bit, but also removing other paved area. The area that's next to the Bay Colony group building, where cars are parked right in that right-of-way, is going to be eliminated and grassed, so there won't be any parking there anymore. All the parking is in the back and on the sides of the other building. So we're just requesting the waiver for site plan review and your approval of the plans. We brought the plans, but I know we've given you copies of all of that. That's pretty much it.
Any questions from anybody on the board?
So we're reducing the parking that was requested on the site plan review.
The parking was approved by the ZBA. What we're asking is a waiver of the site plan review requirement and approval of the landscaping plan. We cannot change the parking plan because the ZBA approval is specific to that parking layout. And that's why we came before this board previously for a review of what we're proposing, but specifically about the parking. Because once the ZBA approves that layout, we couldn't change it without going back. Which if somebody brought up, you know, a good reason for it, we would. But right now, we're not asking for approval of the parking, just a landscaping plan and a waiver of the site plan review requirement.
Right. And just for my clarification, this landscape plan is being treated as one submission, one application, but we are talking about 2 lots here, or are we not? We are, okay.
That is correct, mainly because the parking right now for the 2 buildings are on both of the lots, as well as the lot behind it.
Yeah.
They own the lot behind it with the 2-family, and the parking goes onto that lot. So that's how it's laid out right now.
Interesting. Anything else?
Not for me.
I mean, I think I'll speak for myself, but I don't think the board would disagree with this. I mean, I think that it's been and generally speaking, it's been a great improvement to the area there since they purchased it and renovated the interiors and the exteriors of the building. So I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Excuse me.
Oh.
I would like to request if the board would consider having one condition on the approval, that all site work be completed prior to the issuance of the last certificate of occupancy for the 3rd unit.
Fair enough.
And we have no problem with that. Because we want to get on the working of the exterior and the interior and the landscaping as soon as possible. But you never know with how the winter's going. So I think that's more than reasonable.
One motion.
Yeah, please.
Recommend approval of the site plan waiver request and the landscaping plan with the condition mentioned by Ms. Jordan for 31-39 South Street.
I'll second that.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Good.
Thank you very much.
Being sometime past 7:10 PM, we have a public hearing, special permit for 72 Green Street, construction of an addition to a home, including an accessory apartment for Brian and Amanda Healy.
Hello. Hi.
Good evening.
Need you to state your names and address for the record, please.
Amanda and Brian Healy, 72 Green Street.
All good? Can you tell us about your project?
Yeah, well, we're looking to basically add on for an in-law apartment, so we can take care of my parents, have them move in. The plan is to have access from our main building to go into that building with an exterior entrance also.
So it's, as I look at the plan, the existing house is to the left and this new piece?
Correct.
This new addition will be to the right?
Yep.
So we would be eliminating one bedroom from the house, so our septic system should handle what we need to do, because we had that.
You're not increasing the number of bedrooms?
Correct.
And it appears the laundry room would be the common access to both.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, you have plenty of land.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The house was originally a 2-family.
Was it 2-family?
A
That
duplex.
was
It a
converted.
duplex, correct.
Legally converted into a single-family home, so,
In
they,
2007, 6?
2006, 2007 timeframe.
Yeah,
So they have a pretty large septic system.
yeah.
And you folks are familiar with the restrictions on this after going forward?
Any other questions from the board? Anybody in the audience who has any questions about this? Sure.
Make a motion to close the public hearing regarding the special permit request at 72 Green Street.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye. I make a motion to grant the special permit as requested for 72 Green Street, construction of an addition to a home, including an accessory apartment for Brian and Amanda Healy.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Good luck.
Thank you so much.
Good night.
Thank you, you too.
Great. Okay, it being just past 7:20 PM, we have a public hearing for a modification of a special permit at 106 Washington Street to allow the outdoor storage of vehicles in a self-storage facility by Norman A. Kotak.
Good evening.
Good evening to you.
Norman A. Kotash from NAK Management and Consulting on behalf of MHC 222 Foxborough, Massachusetts, LLC. It's regarding the extra space self-storage facility located at 106 Washington Street. We're asking for the special permit, as you had mentioned, to allow the outdoor storage of vehicles in the back southeast quadrant of the property, the very back of the property. The original owners apparently had U-Hauls back there, and we would like to get this permitted, actually, because I don't know if they actually had a permit for that. We would like to get them permitted to allow for small cars, small trucks, small RVs, and any small boat trailers along the back end.
Where does it go?
I'm sorry?
Where does it go on? This is the front. So you,
So it's just this little gray asphalt pavement area there? Is that what you're talking about, or all of these areas here?
No, well, I think it's in red on your, if it's.
You don't have
Well,
color.
Yeah, they have
Oh,
black and white, yes.
sorry. All right, so if you turn it so that it's landscape, it's the very bottom right corner there. You can see some hash marks along the back line there, which is,
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
see those?
Where?
Okay, there.
Yes.
Okay. And what is it, a butt?
Some, I don't know what that is back there.
I believe that that's the access driveway that is used by the Craft Group from 119 Washington Street.
Okay.
I did speak, if it's okay, I did speak with the Deputy or Assistant Chief Laracy, and he said to make sure that a 33-foot vehicle could make the turn around the back end there. As you can see, it's superimposed with the 33-foot fire truck making the turn there. So we have 30-foot spaces, or 30-foot deep spaces, and still allows for the fire truck to be able to make its radius turn.
And these other structures that are on here, what's the current use of those right now?
So it's all self-storage.
Okay.
That's where a lot of people own them for tailgating.
Oh, got it, yes. Now I
ready
know
for that
exactly what we're talking about. Right. Yes.
Well, we did receive an email from Deputy Chief Laracy regarding that.
The turning radius part?
The use of the facility, the use of the parking spaces. So he's okay with the granting of the special permit, the use of the turning radius is fine, but he would like a condition that no tailgating occur on the site.
At all? And you,
Yeah,
I
I did stop at the
think-
site today, and
I think right now, what we're looking at is the spaces in the rear.
Yes, right.
but if we put that condition on it, it encompasses the entire site. Is
Or we could
who
condition
you're
it for the
representing
parking
aware
in
of that?
the
yeah, as a
rear.
matter of fact, Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I did stop there, and that was the prior owner, the Yadasurnias who owned that property. I guess that's was normally done. When we purchase a property, we have extra space storage. They are a national REIT and a third-party management company, and we stopped that immediately. So we have not allowed tailgating. That's a condition, and we're fine with imposing that condition, so that's not something that we're involved with. That's,
When was it purchased?
I don't know the exact date, probably
Well-
within the last year and a half or so.
Okay.
Probably.
Okay.
Certainly within 2 years.
So, I mean, one of the issues that was there was not so much that, just that it was tailgating. People were using this as man caves and, you know, they were. It's a-
Lucky guys.
You know, so what I hear you saying is that that use
Doesn't
is no
do it,
longer
no.
there.
No, the extra space, like I said, it's a national REIT.
Yeah.
Very strict standards, and as a matter of fact, Merritt Hill Capital, the company that I consult for, along the same lines. We do everything by the book. If we find, to the point, to our fault, if we find there's a code violation, we self-report it and want to get it remedied and properly permitted, because we're eventually going to have to turn around and sell that property. We want to make sure everything's clean. So
You may want to check on it this football season.
I'd love to come back from Cleveland. I was just here a couple of weeks ago, I said, for the Kenny Chesney concert. I think I'll have to come back and check that out every game.
Yeah. I know there was tailgating there last year.
Yeah, there was.
There was.
There was?
So, yeah.
Yes.
Well, I'll have to tell them to get on there, because I talked to the manager today, she says that they're.
Yeah, it's pretty elaborate.
Yeah, pretty
Very elaborate
Really?
setups, yes.
Okay. I will tell them that apparently they're not doing a very good job then.
I'll let you know Sunday afternoon.
What's your unit number?
That was very,
That was good, though.
very quick.
That was good.
I was going to be there, you know. No, I will definitely, the problem is that we're closed on Sunday, and the only person there is the live-in manager, and if they're not on site, sometimes it can be difficult, but I'll make sure they get some literature out or some type of documentation to the tenants there that, hey, look, it's not permitted. So I'll do our very well best to, because we actually don't want that
Yeah.
for liability reasons ourselves.
Right.
Right. Well, and you may need, if the on-site manager is not going to be there on game day, you may need to have somebody there. Or at
Right.
least the first few.
Yeah,
keep it long.
I don't disagree, so.
Yeah, they have to let their tenants have access to that.
Yeah, they all have
storage
access.
stuff. So,
I will make sure of that.
Well, close. Oh, anybody in the audience?
anybody in the audience here for this particular matter? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the meeting.
Make a motion to close the public hearing, modification of a special permit at 106 Washington Street to allow the outdoor storage of vehicles in a self-storage facility.
Second?
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I make a motion to approve the modification of a special permit at 106 Washington Street to allow the outdoor storage of vehicles in a self-storage facility with the condition that there is no tailgating on site.
Second.
And that the turning radius is.
And that the
approved
turning
by-
radius
Right.
has been approved by the fire department.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Very good.
Thank you all, and hey, everyone here has been very kind to talk to Catherine and Gabby, and very kind and helpful, so you guys, wonderful to work with, I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you. You too.
Don't believe it.
He's another Ohioan, he has to say that about me.
There we go.
I know.
There you go. Is it actually 7:30?
Yep, you're good, see?
The clock's wrong.
I'm sorry?
Clock's wrong, it's 7:31.
Being on or about 7:30 PM, we have a continued public hearing for a definitive subdivision for Abbey Lane, construction of a proposed 6-lot subdivision by Joseph Lombardi. You. It's all right. Good evening, whenever you're ready.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Scott Rolfe. I'm with OHI Engineering. Our offices are at 44 Wood Avenue in Mansfield. I'm here tonight with the applicant, Joe Lombardi.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Since we last saw each other, it's been a little while, we have been peer reviewed by Weston and Sampson for both stormwater and subdivision regulations. We have revised plans per comments from the DPW. I don't know if you recall, there was some discussion at the last hearing, was what, July?
Yeah, June.
June? Even further back than I thought.
They're asking that you speak closer to the mic.
I'm sorry. There was concern raised by both an abutter and by the DPW as to whether or not the cul-de-sac would remain a large paved circle. And it was suggested by the DPW director that we eliminate that pavement and make it just a straight throughway, which we have done on the plans. I don't know if you want to go through each item of the peer review comments. That's probably the biggest major change that was made to the plan since we saw you. The remainder are
So
relatively simple, but
is this the piece that's being done away with?
that's the piece that's being eliminated, yes. That's proposed to be loamed and seeded, pavement removed, loamed and seeded, and there'd be a curved road going through, just as if it was a straight shot all the way through. And an extension of the gentleman's driveway.
I think that there are several people in the audience that were not here at the first hearing. Can you just go through a little bit of the subdivision, like where things are, where the basins are, what is being proposed, so that they can see it?
Sure. Gabby, could you pull up C6, page 6, please?
I got it.
Oh, you're
on
doing it.
C6,
I'm
yeah.
sorry.
Sorry, hold on a second.
All right, it's a 6-lot subdivision, creating 2 new roadways. One is an extension of Abbey Lane that runs vertically. The second one is, right now, is called Canoe River Way, which runs east and west. There are 2 stormwater basins proposed, one on the left-hand side between the 2 lots that are at that side of the parcel, and one up in the back next to the corner lot. The houses will be serviced by municipal water. They're going to have septic systems. We drew the houses and the septic systems, and conceptually, we don't know exactly what footprints will actually be installed. Each house has a roof drain system, a subsurface recharge system for the roof water. On the right-hand side of the roadway, just up above the cul-de-sac, it's difficult to see on this plan, perhaps we should go to, let's go to C5, please. Next one. Zoom in just above the cul-de-sac there.
Which one? We
We have a mail kiosk stationed behind the sidewalk on the right side of the roadway, just past the existing cul-de-sac. There's a small retaining wall there to deal with the grades that, for the abutting lot. We've created a mail kiosk and temporary grading easement around that structure. Of course, the easements for the basins are permanent. We also, Joe, if you want to go up to the tip of the Abbey Lane cul-de-sac, we have an easement there which connects and lines up with the, is it
Pioneer.
Pioneer subdivision that was approved shortly before we submitted, and we're proposing to extend that water main to tie into theirs to loop the system through. That's pretty much it. We have 2 at the intersection. We have a crosswalk with 2 handicap ramps. The sidewalk goes up on the right side of the cul-de-sac, going up around the top of the Abbey Lane roundabout there, and it's on the lower side, going there along Canoe River.
And the expectation, sorry. The expectation is these will be public ways?
Correct.
Yes. The limits of the sidewalk was at the direction of the DPW director. Matter of fact, we had 4 handicap ramps, and he cut us down to 2 because that's all he thought we needed. Stormwater is captured in the basins. They handled the 100-year storm. There should be no overflow unless something exceeds a 100-year storm.
Street lighting?
There is street lighting. We've recently relocated it to accommodate the bylaws for all of Abbey Lane. We moved our street light from the northern portion here to the south portion.
There is a street light at the top of the cul-de-sac up at Abbey. There's one over on Canoe Riverway at the end of that cul-de-sac and one right at the intersection. And again, based on a comment we received from the peer review engineer, as Joe said, the traffic light was on the upper side of the intersection of the 2 roads there, but because of a lack of street lighting on the existing Abbey Lane, he recommended that we move it to the other side of the intersection just to help fill in down a little further.
As part of our requirements for the subdivisions, we require a street light at the end of each cul-de-sac and at each intersection. So a peer reviewer noted that there was we required the maximum distance was 400 feet between street lights, and there was a distance of more than that where the location of the street light at the intersection. So by moving it to the other side of the intersection, then that decreased the number, and it was more in what we require.
Along the way, we had some stumbles with some typos and box numbers and whatnot. We had the street trees. We had to move a couple up on the left side of the upper cul-de-sac from Abbey Lane. We had to move a tree to make it to give it the 14-foot separation from the driveway. We did the same thing at a driveway at the upper right-hand corner of the parcel at that driveway there. And I think that was it. We met we met all the other requirements for the spacing of the trees and placing of the trees. There is a hydrant proposed at the end of the cul-de-sac on the upper Abbey Lane to the upper right-hand side. There is also one at the end of Canoe River, and there's one on the left-hand side just above the existing cul-de-sac as we come up to the new street, right there. So that's the basic subdivision.
Is that last, you had mentioned at the end of the existing cul-de-sac, is that hydrant existing or relocated or?
It's going to be replaced.
Replaced.
We initially proposed to relocate it, and we were asked to replace it, not knowing what the condition of it was. But the town didn't know what the condition was.
I have a question on the, excuse me, the elimination of the cul-de-sac that's currently there. What happens to the frontage of the McCarthy's property?
Doesn't change.
It doesn't change, okay.
Doesn't change. The grass is in the layout.
All right.
That would be problematic, perhaps.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's why I brought it up.
Does have any questions? Any more questions?
Anything else from the board?
I don't.
I know we have some people here.
Anybody in the audience who'd like to speak or have any, raise some questions or concerns? Yeah, Mr. McCarthy, just state your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening, I'm Sean McCarthy, 4 Abbey Lane, live in the cul-de-sac. So I sent an email on Gabby's request to, hopefully you guys saw it and read it, just some general questions after seeing the determinations. Joe was kind enough to give me his phone number at the previous meeting, but I had nothing to discuss until now. He was also kind enough to send a detailed email back explaining some of the things that were in under his arena. And I think we can work those things out. I just want to make sure that that process is recorded and that it's proper,
It'd be a
right?
condition.
And then the other question I had, which is unrelated to Joe, is what happens with that strip of land? Because quite honestly, I don't, when they fill in the cul-de-sac, I'm going to maintain it, right? But it stays town-owned property, right?
That's what I was asking.
Indefinitely. So there's nothing that they would really, they could do still whatever they wanted as the town itself, correct, with that land, and if they so chose down the road? Meaning, does it hurt, is there any precedence where it affects values or?
It may, you would expect, but I'm sure we have some precedents around. I don't know what they are.
Yeah, I don't know, but, I mean, the layout is going to remain there, so you need the layout to have, your frontage, so, that will remain.
Okay, so it's not like after a certain amount of time, whether it's 10, 20 years, that it automatically, because it's maintained, follows that adverse possession type law?
It would still be non-conforming, though.
On the frontage side?
Yes.
Yes, so you couldn't because you'd be
I don't think
non-conforming,
so.
but then does it fall under pre-existing non-conforming because it's been 20?
Yeah.
Are we under the same,
I think you would, yeah.
Yeah, it would.
it would, right? So then it would automatically be,
I'm not so sure about that.
Why?
Yeah, I think that the layout is the layout.
Yeah.
When you,
At any rate, those are things that could be explored
Yeah.
at some point if, it became an issue
Okay.
in some way. And certainly it would probably have to be explored if you ever were going to sell and transfer the property.
yeah, yeah. So those are my big concerns. And the last one was, which we talked about in the very brief exchange, which was strictly the protection of existing trees, property line, and a potential buffer, or as shown. I know that some of us are affected more by the removal of trees because, as Joe explained in his letter, he needs that to make one of the lots work,
Right.
which is obviously critical to the subdivision plan. So that was something I wanted to know, more on, and I'll let other neighbors, if they want to comment on that, if there's anything.
Okay.
Okay, and lastly, the order of conditions that we're discussing, is that something we do through email, or that I submit my, how does that work?
Today would be the day.
Today would be the
Today would be
day?
the day, yes.
Okay, so is that email that we exchanged, is that record?
They have, yes, and they have that,
It's in the
yes.
file already.
Okay, so
Yeah,
today,
I've printed copies so that I'll, they've seen it before the meeting, and I also have copies of your comments, of your exchange.
yeah,
for
so the
board
wooded
to
area
look
would
at.
probably be my biggest thing that I didn't look at and say that, we could work out. All right, well, thank you.
Thank
Very
you.
welcome. Sure. Thank you.
I do have one more question on Lot 1, where it abuts the McCarthy's property. On page C6, you're showing pretty significant grade change of about 10 feet, right there. Are you building that up, Joe, or is that existing?
That's a conceptual house. It's just made to work with the existing grade beyond. this
Okay, so
property.
that grade is actually that way right now?
No, the contours.
What is the current grade there? I think
Current
that's the
grade does
question.
slope down quite a bit right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to find out.
It runs diagonally that way. It would
Okay.
be just cut to be straight.
If you look at the road section for Abbey Lane, you can see that the grade drops quite a bit coming down the hill there.
Should have turned the page.
It's okay. So just to answer Mr. McCarthy's questions about the trees, it's in our best interest as well to keep as much privacy between the lots. So, as Scott mentioned, the houses are conceptual. I'm happy to walk the limited clearing with the neighbors at the time before tree cutting. If there's a tree that we can save that will help, I'd be happy to do so. But also, we need to make the grades work with some of the houses and.
Understood.
Anyone else? No, go ahead.
I just said, these are generous sized houses too, so it's not like we're putting little
Right,
kids
right,
and then
right.
you come back with a monster.
Yes, sir, please, you can just state your name and address for the record.
John DePietro, 25 Windsor Drive. I have a couple of questions. First of all, my concern is the same as Sean's as far as the setback is concerned, the trees on our property with roots into the construction area. Is there going to be some sort of setback set up?
Well, so there's a limited clearing shown on the drawings, and that's about what we'll be abiding by and flagging when it comes time to clear the lot. As I mentioned in the email, I'd be happy to fence off any of your drip lines. If there are trees that are within the drip lines of the areas that we're gonna be clearing, I can fence off those drip lines. I don't anticipate any excavation close to your lot line where I would be, excavating through roots or through the root zone of your trees. But if for whatever reason, something along those lines needs to happen, I'd be happy to, work with an arborist, someone like Tree Tech or Bartlett Tree to consult for us, just to make sure that your trees are okay.
The other is, we're concerned about the noise impact. I know construction's gonna be noisy, I know that, but there's gonna be a lot of traffic, trucks coming up, the issue of blasting.
Yeah, we did quite a few test pits. I would say the entrance into the subdivision from the existing Abbey Lane is probably our highest concern at the moment, but we don't anticipate needing to blast as of now.
And if they do need to blast, they do a pre-inspection of the homes
Right.
around it, so if something does, if there's an
Occur,
impact,
you're covered.
you're covered.
Okay, will we get notification before
Yes.
the blasting?
Yes,
So that we're not gonna be surprised?
right.
And there is hour restrictions and day restrictions for construction in our town, so they'd have to abide by that as well.
Correct.
All right, and any plans to put a fencing around the property between
There is not right now.
the residents? Okay,
There is not.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Yes, please.
Richard, yeah, so 1 Abbey Lane, it's pretty much here. I think this is the place.
That is your house, yes.
Yeah, yeah. So same question.
Could we need you to come to the mic.
Oh, no problem.
Sorry.
Let me face this way, yeah.
Yeah.
You guys hear? So the.
No,
distance-
come to the mic. You gotta stand there and you can.
Okay, this land in
help
House of
you.
Mine, right? But yeah,
Yes,
essentially
proceed.
between that one, is there any different distance, kind of spec between the two houses? I'm worried about the grade under the trees, meaning how much it goes down, how it's kind of separated. This part. Yeah.
Yes.
Is there any bylaw in terms of how far they should be apart?
The building from the property line?
Right.
Yes, there is. There are
Okay.
setback requirements.
I see.
It's shown on the plan, it's the dash line,
Correct.
right at the bottom of the slope there.
So-
Setback line right there. That's as close as a building can get legally by
Okay.
zoning.
Now, the reason I'm asking essentially with the grade, together with the distance, is there special consideration? Meaning, flat distance 10 feet is different from sloped 10
The
feet.
grade,
That's
the
what I'm
grade
saying,
could be,
right?
can go right up to the property line.
Okay. So how is the retaining wall being constructed? Is it like a
So that we-
rocks or just a?
Yeah, we're not proposing to build a retaining wall behind this lot,
Okay,
which is
okay.
why we show the grading here, and the additional clearing up to the lot line. So
Just
that we
the
can
natural
grade,
kind
so
of
that
a-
we can cut the grade and
Okay.
give a flat backyard for a certain amount of feet, until it grades up to your property.
So there's no sort of a specification or the bylaw to say that, right? In terms of my main concern is because the slope, right? Is there any problem later for the existing soil or the trees, or is there any sort of a?
Well, the slope, from what I can read on these plans, is gonna be going towards the new lot that's being developed.
Yeah.
So he
Right.
wouldn't be changing, he can't change the runoff from that property to your
yours.
current property
Okay.
now. That is against the zoning. He cannot do that.
Okay.
So what he's creating is the flow the other direction.
The backyard as proposed on this drawing here is approximately 10 feet lower than the grade around your house. You have a contour of 240 up at your house, and if you look at the contour going into the back left-hand corner of the house, that's 230, that's 10 feet below.
How much is the drop from, say?
10 feet.
10 feet.
Oh, there's not
Yeah.
huge, right? Yeah. Okay.
Not huge, but there will be
Okay.
a slope from
Right, right,
the
right. No, no, I
backyard
see,
up
yeah.
towards your property.
Okay. No, that's pretty much my question. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah.
No problem.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the audience have any questions or comments?
A motion? Make a motion to close the public hearing for the definitive subdivision, Abbey Lane, construction of a proposed 6-lot subdivision, Joseph Lombardi.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I sent I sent the board conditions, so I printed them out, and I printed out the email exchange with Mr. McCarthy, so that everybody can discuss, so.
I just want to acknowledge both the developer and the neighbors. I've never seen a more cordial exchange of questions and answers and working together. And it's very commendable.
Thank you.
It is rare. Thank you folks very much. Thank you.
We haven't voted on it yet.
I'm sorry.
Want to leave now?
No, I wanna leave, yeah.
They got so excited with my compliment, they were just ready to leave.
Give that to Gary, too.
Okay, what do you need? Do you need me to read all of these?
I don't know, where did Gabby go?
She's right there,
Gabby?
Sean.
Are you looking to have these all read into the record,
Do we have to read all these into the record?
the conditions?
Okay. We have extra copies. Okay. Do you want a motion?
Sure.
Okay. Thank you. I make a motion to approve the definitive.
Hold, please.
Hold. Gabby speaks, we listen.
I think we need to discuss, the conditions about adding the conditions besides what we have here about the cul-de-sac, the construction of the cul-de-sac.
Which one?
The
removal of the existing?
The removal, yes, of the existing.
Right.
And also the trees.
Well, right now, we have 5, which is a representative from the planning board shall review and approve the limits of clearing prior to the removal of trees. Is there anything, so there's nothing in this typed up document about the
Cul-de-sac?
cul-de-sac?
No, I just wanted you to,
We need to add it.
yeah,
Okay.
I'm not sure.
And how much of a bond, do we know?
The bond is set by the construction that is not done prior to them asking to set the bond. The developers do a lot of work, and then after some of the work is done, then before they ask for lot releases, they set a bond. We set the amount.
So do you think that it's not a condition, but do you feel that the interchange between Mr. McCarthy and the applicant in his letter addresses the cul-de-sac? Or is there more information you'd like in there than that?
No, I think that we need to have some sort of reference to, the construction or the removal of the cul-de-sac.
Can I just ask, doesn't C5 reflect that?
What?
C5.
What's C5?
Page number here.
The drawings.
Oh.
I mean, I'm not sure how technical it is, but
Well, no, it's still showing the cul-de-sac, isn't it?
Right.
It just shows the perimeter of it, but the roadway goes through.
the driveway is coming out.
So the modifications to the cul-de-sac would make what you see on this plan a ghost.
Yeah.
It'll be an overlay with grass, but I think we do need to address that land is still part of the town of Foxborough. Mr. McCarthy needs that to maintain his frontage. This is like when we do one of the
Yep.
conventionals.
Yep.
And I think that's gonna be worded that it's in perpetuity.
Okay, I agree. Gabby, anything else?
No, I think that we can, I can add in the discussion of the project, in the decision, in the language of the decision, not the conditions, about the third-party contractor or things like that for the construction of the driveway for Mr. McCarthy, the
I was just
extension
going to
of
say
the
that,
driveway.
yeah, because that has to be included as part of that elimination of the cul-de-sac, that he now has an extension directly to the new Abbey Lane,
Right,
or the
Yeah.
existing Abbey Lane.
Yeah.
right, the asphalt needs to be removed.
Yeah.
Yep.
Soil and sod need to go in, or soil and seed need to go in, so. Do we want to wait until we can pull that together, or do we want to?
I think I can add that in the discussion itself, not as a condition, but I just wanted to have that discussion before you vote on the conditions.
Right.
Do you feel?
I feel very comfortable with that. Just, I was going to have a question. Does he need to go to the Board of Selectmen now to get a curb cut?
You mean Mr. McCarthy?
Yeah. I just want to make sure that there's no unforeseen loop.
No, because he already has a
No, it's
curb
a
cut
curb,
on
this right
Abbey.
here.
Yeah, he has one there, it was existing property on the old
Here's
cul-de-sac.
the existing driveway.
No,
right here.
I understand that.
Right.
So the subdivision is already, has a deeded access on Abbey Lane.
Okay.
Ron, do you want to make the motion? Because I think you will encapsulate it better.
I can encapsulate it better, that's good. Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the definitive subdivision with the conditions as stated here, and then also there will be a separate agreement to the modifications to the existing cul-de-sac on Abbey Lane, addressing access, ownership, maintaining the frontage for the McCarthy residents, and this should be done in perpetuity, so that it'll be there forever and never be disturbed.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now you guys can go.
All right, appreciate that, thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Your thoughts?
It's pretty benign.
You don't have to stay.
And, I just don't know. There has to be a couple of examples around town where that's been done before.
I don't know. Gotta be a...
Dan, you let Peter come tonight, huh?
Absolutely. If there's any examples of something like this possibly to happen. Mr. Tam?
They let you back.
Shaved and everything.
Yeah, it's almost...
Wow.
Yeah. Sean's covered in that.
No, I agree.
No, I thought you had an excellent point.
Okay. Being sometime past 7:40 PM, we have a modification to site plan approval request for the Patriots Training Center, Foxborough Realty Associates LLC. Good evening, one and all.
Good evening. You're up.
Mr. Chairman, are you waiting for us?
We are.
I didn't know if Catherine, if you wanted to open this, or if you wanted me to start.
I'm happy to if you want me to. I think that it makes a lot more sense to just give an overview of the project first before we delve into anything regarding like what type of modification this board decides on and any of their questions and concerns. But I think an introduction to the project is probably good first off.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Catherine and members of the board. For the record, Peter Tam from Goulston Historis, with me Dan Krantz, Woody Benesek Beal, and Beth behind us, as well as Rich from VHB. We're happy to be here, and I'll be very brief and turn it over to Dan. The reason why we're happy to be here is this is the sort of next step in a stadium modernization effort that has been ongoing, that we worked with you and with various departments on what was a large effort in the north end zone with those improvements. And this is sort of the next step, which is football operations. So the process so far has been very productive, and this started a few months ago with coordination and a pre-filing meeting where we met with all applicable departments, coordinated by Catherine and Gabby, and got initial feedback prior to this filing. That was very helpful. It led to subsequent discussions with various departments, particularly public safety, and Woody kind of headed up those follow-ups, and that led to this filing. So much like many of the other modifications, including North End Zone, we're seeking a minor modification to the original 2000 site plan approval. And as part of that, we're essentially documenting that the scope and impacts here are comparable or were anticipated and fall within the scope of what was approved and authorized and reviewed back in 2000, albeit this is a change. And so that is, Catherine and I have been exchanging memos and documentation. So the second piece of this, and we can take it in either of two ways, is we can review the limited impacts, and you can make a decision as to whether you see this as a minor modification, or we can provide an overview of the project and then discuss those impacts. If you determine that they're minor, you can act on it this evening. If you determine them to be substantive, then we would probably have to notice this then and come back for a public hearing. Now, you should know there is a public hearing on this very project on Monday before the Conservation Commission. So it has been noticed and it has been advertised. So we'll follow your lead, however you choose. If you'd like us to one proposal that Dan and I thought about was just to be expeditious, we could discuss the minor modification and lay out all the impacts in summary form in 20 minutes or less. And you can make that determination, and then we can come back in 2 weeks if you were to determine it to be minor and provide a project overview.
Okay. Dan, why don't you walk us through it?
Happy to do so.
While he's doing that, I consolidated both our points as well as Catherine's point in one page, which I thought might be helpful.
You got to make, the fast version of it. So good evening, board. Thank you. As Peter said, this is really, it's been the evolution of the football team and of the training center with, over the last 20, 23 years. There's a lot that has changed in the NFL, and this building should kind of upgrade us and keep us current, if not ahead of, our competitors within the NFL. It truly is. It's just we're taking the football training facilities out of inside the stadium. Thank you, Peter. And literally just moving that entire operating system, as it were, over to the new facility. So where is the new facility? We have our, hopefully I'm speaking loud enough everybody can hear me.
Where's the bubble?
Well, the field house is right here.
Okay.
Stadium, obviously, so this is west, the Neponset River train station up here, just to put things, not Putnam Parkway anymore, it's Cross Insurance Drive, thank you, Rich. So Cross Insurance Drive out the back to North Street right there.
Okay.
Just to put things in perspective. So we have an upper practice field, we have a lower practice field. Currently, public safety will enter through the North Street, come in through this and turn into our loading dock. We'll get into a little bit about how that really doesn't change. But what our intent is to do here is it'll be primarily a two-story building, roughly 150,000 square feet. At the parking lot level, it'll be on stilts, so you'll be able to park underneath the building. And the main portion of the building will start right up at field level. So we'll get into some of the interiors and what's inside the building. But the main piece of the building on this side is the weight room. And the intention there is that the players would be able to walk from the weight room directly onto the practice field. And then it'll have a second story above that, which will be, again, meeting rooms, scouting, and some other things that we can get into. So, some things will have changed. Again, we've had the discussions with DPW, with public safety, and they've actually found that this access is probably better because, Rich, can we maybe go to the next slide?
I'm sorry.
That'll work. So this is a,
No.
yeah, let's go back to the rendering if you don't mind, thank you. So this is, again, as we discussed, the building's up on stilts, you'll be able to park under it. We can talk through where we've gone through it with police and fire and made sure that we've been able to meet their requirements for the building. Second floor, which is really the first floor, which will exit out onto the practice field, and then you're headed out into the second floor of the building. So it's in the southeast corner of the stadium. It's on an existing parking lot right now, and then it goes out into the existing practice field a little bit because the existing practice field is actually a field and a half. And with the addition of this building, it will just be a one practice field. It was built larger at the time to accommodate soccer. Obviously, we don't, with the new soccer facilities out on the backside of the property, we don't need to have the expanded size for soccer here now, so it'll be a kind of a football-only facility.
Dan, what about height in comparison to the stadium?
So this, we're at what, 15, 15, and 10?
It's 42 feet tall.
42 feet.
Parking.
I was at 40, thank you.
Yeah.
And our stadium is at what, 100?
From the east side, yeah, 100.
And up to, say, Light Towers, which
Whatever
would
that
be
is,
up
195 feet to the lights.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So, quite a significant difference. And so this is roughly a two-story building, and just to put things in context, you know, we were before the board for a minor modification for the Craft Group building, and that's, you know, a four-story building which is roughly, you know, 50 feet for that building. Maybe one more, Rich, where you can see the reverse angle. So again, this is standing on the practice field looking back, so you can just see the two stories. This is the weight room. This is actually an open area above the weight room because it'll be a two-story height, so you can get a lot of natural light and bleeding into the weight room. So there'll be a big open area with two-story heights and a mezzanine on the backside where you'll be able to look down over the players as they train. I think we can go to the next one. Peter said we only had 20 minutes, I got it wrong. Again, this is just another perspective of the field, but again, from here you can see it's a 30-foot high building as you look at it from the stadium, so it is a fairly compact building, but it does run, how wide are we here, Woody?
The length of the building?
Yeah.
Is 330 feet.
So it's 330 feet wide by 30 feet tall at this point. Again, puts it in perspective with the existing storage building out back, just by way of height. I'm lower than that building. I have the next one, Rich. Same kind of idea. This is if you're standing on the south ramp looking back at the stadium, gives you a perspective of how the building might look. We continue on.
Dan, that's currently parking right now, correct?
It is.
Okay.
It is,
Yeah.
and I think as we get, and I turn it over to Rich, and he'll talk about it, so I'm not going to steal his thunder, but really, it's no net loss in parking, and that was our intention. We'll be able to put the building in, but it won't impact parking at all.
Because of the parking underneath.
Correct. Parking underneath, and you're going to see we're going to rearrange kind of where the guard booth is going to be and how the main access is. Again, police and fire both thought it was better. Our operations people think it's incredibly better. Even our security guys think it's better from creating the safe perimeter, not only on a game day, but also for just normal daily events.
I think we were really fortunate in this instance because we could leverage the topography to our advantage. often there's conversations about what we just heard, about how the topography changes. In this instance, it almost worked out perfectly where you could conceal the parking beneath the field level, make it accessible from the parking lot side, but also accessible from the field level for the players and everyone else. So it worked out, surprisingly well. But there are a lot of unique aspects in this quadrant of the site that I think we've had an opportunity presented to us to try to really improve upon it. Now, I can get into a little more detail on that, but it's been, one of those refreshing projects to work on because it's actually been not a plug and play, but it's worked out really well the way it was situated with the land.
Hey, Dan, so is it going to be restricted for player parking only?
Player parking only, except on game day or event day. And because
be
primarily, they're going to use the same locker room on game day that they're using right now. And many of the facilities that they use on game day are going to remain in the stadium because they need those on game day. They might be, consolidate a little bit because they don't need the mass expanse that they have today because they can make it a little bit smaller. But they'll park in the same place on game day right in front of their entrance right now. On game day, but on non-game days, they'll primarily park underneath the building. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah, no, it does.
Okay.
I think this is where
This is where I turn it over to Rich.
Yeah, do you want me to keep going, or?
I think we want to keep going. We again, that's kind of our big picture overview. We can turn it back over to Peter for 2 minutes or less. I have to, kind of why we think this does fit the criteria for a minor modification. We understand it's completely and 100% the board's decision. We know that, and I know you've seen Peter's letter to Catherine and to Scott, but, 11 times over the last 10 years, I feel we've been in a similar position. We've ended up with a minor mod, and we can go through the reasons why we think this one.
Why don't we hold on that? Because why don't we get a sense from the board and the staff what they think?
Yeah, so if you don't mind, I'd like to explain kind of the context of this. When I received the formal modification, something that I was looking for, because I'm brand new to the whole process and the original site plan, I was really looking at the definition piece of what is a minor modification, and the language within the original site plan is incredibly vague. It gives you sole authority to say whatever you believe is minor or not. So because I couldn't find answers there, I did ask the craft group to summarize their thoughts and consider the factors that led them to classify this as minor modification. So Peter Tam got me a memorandum probably within a day. It was very, very quick. And I read through that. I discussed with Scott Shippey. I gave my reasoning that because it's a new structure, it's away from the stadium itself. It's not connected directly, and because it relocates a roadway, that and if I were to make a ruling on it, I would not determine that to be minor. I talked to Scott, and he was of the same mind. So, you have our memos to read, but at the end of the day, because the language is incredibly vague, it's entirely at your discretion.
Thank you. What do you guys, what's your thought?
I'm just listening right now.
And I thank Catherine for her 4 items of consideration for the board. I would like to take, maybe with Peter co-piloting me here, just a couple of minutes to discuss those 4 considerations and maybe, again, why I think those considerations have been considered in the past, I guess is probably my simplest way of saying that, if you would allow us a minute to do so.
Sure, go ahead.
Peter, you want to start with that, and I'll show in?
Yeah, I agree with Catherine that when you look at this with fresh eyes, she's correct that in 2000, there's really no direction given to the board as to what is deemed minor versus what is major or substantial. But over time, and I laid this out in our memo to the board, There has been a little bit of definition that's been provided, and then there have been these precedents that have been established. And I think those are all instructive, but it's, as Dan says, it's ultimately your call. And there's no right or wrong answer here. But you can look at your regulations, which were adopted later. And your regulations, which were adopted later, borrow from the site plan approval from 2000. And in Article 6 of the Planning Board regs, it says that modifications that do not result in material intensification of use may be minor mods. May. So here, you're literally moving one use that's authorized from inside the stadium to outside the stadium to an existing developed area. You're not displacing parking, you're not impacting any environmental factors, you're not increasing parking, you're not losing parking, you're not increasing traffic. So when you talk about intensification of use, that's what it says in the regs. This is not that, right? And then we always try to be thoughtful whenever we present to you. We have VHB prepare an infrastructure analysis. And Rich and his team confirmed that there's no new infrastructure demand. Everything can be accommodated based on existing demand, existing design, and there will be some benefits in terms of stormwater improvements. So really no impact there. And so we tried to be systematic about how you could look at this if you'd like to. Traffic and parking, no impact. Land disturbance, already impacted, right? So no impact. Infrastructure, no material impact. Only some benefit. Event day operations Dan's talked about. It's going to be operated in the same way. There are some benefits. And in terms of construction, what we've always said is that a construction management plan will be prepared by the contractor and will be carefully evaluated by your building commissioner. So, and this has been done numerous times. They have good experience. So from a site and civil perspective and a design perspective and an operation perspective, we don't see that to be significant. Now, Catherine brings up 4 other items. The new building concept, that this is in fact a new building as opposed to a replacement building. But Woody knows this. The fact that it's a new building actually simplifies both demolition and utilities, right, in terms of coordination and logistics.
Absolutely.
And there have been other new buildings that have been authorized as minor mods, including the pavilion, the storage building, and even most recently the pedestrian bridge, which spans Route 1 as a structure, standalone. The fact that it's freestanding as opposed to attached, it's very close to the southeast corner of the stadium. Again, we think that the freestanding nature actually simplifies construction relative to, for instance, if you compare it to the north end zone improvement, where there was a lot of complexity in terms of how that was integrated, how it was carried out, and that was at the front door. This is not there. And there's been a number of other freestanding structures that have been approved, including pavilion, storage, and the pedestrian bridge. It is a large building. It's 150,000 square feet. Other large buildings have been approved by this board as minor modifications. The north end zone improvements exceeded 120,000 square feet of impact on over 6 acres at the front door. That was a complex, I mean, Woody lived it. It was a complex undertaking, but we did that with the board as a minor modification. So I don't think any of those items, either on their own or in the aggregate, are really justify or make this materiality. In terms of the realignment of the driveway, we routinely address these issues. In almost every one of these, there has been some modification of an internal driveway alignment or some pedestrian movement. And so, we can go down the list, and you have the list. So that's one where, if public safety was raising issues, if I was on the board, I would say, I want you to settle this with police and fire. And so we engaged with them. They see this as beneficial. They have a number of questions that they want to see on final plans in terms of access for apparatus. And we've tried to anticipate those issues on the second page and building them into potential conditions of approval. So there's no neighborhood impact here, right? It's 1,000 feet from, you have to cross Patriot Place, the railroad tracks, the river, and then an extensive wooded area before you get to the nearest residence. Construction traffic is going to be coming on and off of Route 1. There's no impact to any abutting land uses or neighboring residential areas. So, and then I had mentioned this, there is in fact a public hearing this Monday, on this project before the Conservation Commission.
Why is that?
Because there's, and Dan can point to it, there's a small wetland area, and we're staying outside of it, but we are going to be touching an existing disturbed area within the buffer zone.
It's predominantly just because the previously degraded areas within the buffer zone are still within the buffer, but once we alter them, we have to go back to Conservation Commission. We're actually restoring a fair amount of the edge condition, and I'll get to that a little bit later, or when I have the opportunity to present it further, but that will provide a nice foreground for the building, the restoration of that area around that perimeter.
I want to ask him about this.
I was going to read it.
You're welcome to read it. Or have they been given a copy of Scott Shippey's memo?
Yeah, they were copied on the email where I sent the materials to you all.
Yeah. And I agree with all 3 points that Scott Shippey makes. I personally, I mean, we can let them talk more if we want, but this is not a minor modification, in my opinion.
So, let's just take a minute. We don't have to read it into the record because it's already part of it in this, but why don't you address Mr. Shippey's concerns?
Well, his concerns are virtually identical to Catherine's in terms of factors, and I think Catherine lays them out for you. So,
But I just want to point something out, Peter. So the pedestrian bridge, which keeps getting referred to as a minor modification, it doesn't require a special permit in accordance with section 9.5.6.1 because the bridge itself spans over Route 1, which is under the authority of the state.
well, this doesn't require a special permit either.
I know. The north end improvements were renovations to the existing stadium and lighthouse, along with the existing public access to the stadium. And Building P, now known as the Kraft Group, was replacing a previous one-story building within the stadium proper. The new four-story building is now connected to the stadium. So all the points that you raised, there's like a second and third sentence that you didn't include that has this stuff.
Well, let me,
Unless you can refute what Scott Shippey.
I don't intend to
Well, that's
refute
not even-
anything. I respect
He's not
Scott.
refuting it.
You know,
Okay.
I think it's important, Scott's concerns or considerations are also in some way addressed in the 4 items that Catherine raised. So Building P that he mentions in his point number 1 was a replacement building.
Yes.
Right? So that was Catherine's concern with the new building versus replacement.
And you can't disagree with that statement, correct?
Of course not. But what we're saying is that because this is a new building, doesn't make it a material change. There have been numerous new buildings that have been adopted as approved by this board as minor modifications.
On the Kraft property?
Yeah,
Which one?
I listed them. The pavilion building, the storage building.
Isn't the pavilion building part of the,
If we go to the
where's
site
the
plan,
pavilion building?
To the north side.
What, can I ask a question? And I'm not being flippant. Why are you, obviously it's less expensive for you not to have to take this to a public hearing, but why such the insistence that this is a minor modification?
This is my opinion, and I'll let Peter give his, because we've been in front of this board for, 11 times over 11 years, and they've been minor modifications, and I think a precedent has been set, and I don't know why at this point in time it's time to change it, to be honest with you.
Okay, so what would you, just for my edification, what would you compare this project to something we've already approved as a minor mod?
So we talked about this. So just to walk you around and give you the pavilion building, the large pavilion, I don't know what it's now branded as.
Just
Sports
recently,
Illustrated.
Sports Illustrated Pavilion.
Large,
across.
Tracy, large freestanding building. Minor
big?
modification.
How big, Woody?
35,000 square feet footprint. I think
That's a big difference over 150,000.
Well, 150,000 square foot building here relative to a 2 million plus square foot stadium. That's a less than 10%,
But
right?
if I compare it, if you folks are using a 35,000-foot standalone building as precedent setting, I would completely disagree.
Well, on
30
size, so.
Don't compare it, Peter. It's 35,000,
You were-
150,000.
But you were asking about freestanding. That was Scott's first point. You asked me to address Scott's points. Point number one, he distinguishes it as freestanding, and I can point to numerous examples of freestanding buildings.
Okay, but then, and
Size.
does any of
Size.
those, are any
I
of them
talked
the
about
same
this real
size?
quickly. Yes, the alteration of the North Plaza,
That's attached.
but we're talking about size,
I
right?
know, but it's attached.
The building P.
Let's call a spade a spade. That was a gimme. It was a huge gimme, and you know why? Because you guys got screwed out of the North Plaza from the initial construction with the laser and everything else that was going on
Well-
with that. And it's an improvement, there's no question about it. It is better than it was. I mean, no one will refute that. But I don't think that, I don't think it's the same as a totally new structure. I'm not saying that, I'm not trying to give my point of view at this point. I'm just saying there are some differences between those two things.
So we're going to follow the lead of the board. This is your decision. But I think when Tracy asked why we are sort of sticking to our guns here, is because this process has worked so well for so long, and it's taking us a long time to get here. And what that process, why it's so successful, is it requires that we meet and consult early, right? Before we even get to you. And we've done that
With whom?
with every department.
And Scott Shippey and our
Yes,
director
and-
have
and-
both stated that it's not a minor modification. So the consulting is all good,
Public-
Peter, but the answer that is coming from the staff that we rely on for their expertise is saying it's not a minor mod.
Because of 3 or 4 factors
Uh-huh.
that we think do not drive any new intensification and do not drive new impacts.
But
And-
that there's not a definition that a minor mod, as long as it meets those 2 criteria that it's a minor mod, to Catherine's point, it's vague.
It's large. So, I mean,
Yes.
Yeah, very large.
It's a very large building.
So there are two additional points that I would just like to add to the conversation. One is from Scott, and it's one of the final sentences of his memo that says, in his opinion, there's no precedent set when approving applications for land use. Each proposal is decided on a case-by-case core based on the factors that are presented. And then from my own perspective, I always go back to what would I tell a resident if they asked why was it classified as minor modification. And that's why I asked the craft group to prepare the memorandum. That's why I submitted it to you for your consideration. That's the question that I always ask myself.
So there's going to be a public hearing on Monday. So if the board concludes, as I suspect this is going in that direction, that this is somehow substantive and that this is a material intensification. If you conclude that, this will result in delay and it's a general inefficiency, right? Where we've done everything, we've demonstrated everything, we've provided the infrastructure assessment. And we're dealing with a large building in the context of a 2 million square foot. It's a special and unique circumstance. And I will say it's not a case-by-case basis, but it is within your discretion. The precedent here is meaningful because minor modifications are established under the site plan approval from 2000, and they're built into your regulations. And it specifically says if there's no material intensification. And I don't think anyone in this room can say that this is a material intensification in use.
I didn't hear you when you reviewed that you used that there's any wording around material intensification.
That wasn't part of, I mean, I can read you directly the language, because I think that's important to go back to, and that was the first place where I went. It's any proposed material changes from the approved site plans, elevations, or additional site work deemed substantive by any town official shall be presented for review by the planning board. The board shall determine if there is a need for a public hearing and shall then act accordingly on the changes. Changes considered minor in nature by the board shall not require a public hearing. Approved revisions shall be illustrated on plans and submitted to the board.
So no use of the word intensification.
There is
It's
not-
in your regulations. She's quoting, Catherine's quoting from the condition of the 2000 site plan approval.
I agree with you, Peter. Like, the road doesn't bother, moving of the road doesn't bother me. I mean, you're not intensifying, the land disturbance, the traffic and the parking. It's the size of the building and that it's a standalone.
So Building P, the Craft Group building, is over 100,000 square feet on 4 stories.
That's attached. Isn't it?
Yeah.
But why, I just don't understand why that matters. This is,
And there was also a temporary building there that replaced.
again, it was a small temporary building. This is replacing some parking. I don't know why that's a material intensification. Your regs say material intensification.
Okay.
So it is, I didn't intend to be argumentative. And I think Dan and I both feel a degree of frustration because we vetted this early. This was not identified in the pre-filing discussion that we had. It wasn't identified as a concern by any public safety officials. And then on September 4th or 5th, we received this memo. So
I think that we need to give Catherine some grace because she is new to this process. So.
No, I agree, and I'm not putting this on Catherine. But if the board determines that this is material, we'll be back here next month. We'll notice it, and we're going to do the same thing. But I will say we have to fix this going forward. That determination should be made at the pre-filing meeting. And this is all laid out in your regs.
No. We are not going to determine if something's a major
No, not
mod or a
you.
minor mod at a pre-discussion. Like, that's just not going to happen, Peter. You are not helping this argument in any way, shape, or form. So,
Well, I'm not suggesting the board make that decision, but there's a pre-filing meeting that's a requirement for modifications to the stadium site plan. The board is not involved in those. Had we known then, had Scott, Catherine, anybody identified, we specifically said, we're approaching this as a minor modification. No one
So
objected to that.
when you met with Scott, what did he say?
There was head nodding and work to do when we left that meeting.
he didn't
Typically-
say that it was a minor mod when you left that meeting?
No, they did say that it was a minor modification.
No, did Scott Shippey say it was
Oh, no, he
a minor
did not, but typically
modification?
the pre-filing meetings are more technical in nature. They identify circumstances and, configurations that are problematic, and it gives the developers an opportunity to make corrections in advance of filing. It saves them a lot of time
Okay.
and money.
But Scott Shippey did not state during that pre-whatever meeting.
I don't think that any of us stated it except that it was submitted as a minor modification. And I had reservations at the time, but because all the language was, this is always the way that things are submitted, I was a little bit unsure. And it took me some time to dig through the language and to come to the conclusion that there really is no parameter, no
There is, though.
guidelines.
I, for one, appreciate fresh eyes looking at this.
No, and we do too, but Article 6 of your regulations specifically says minor modifications may be approved where there's no material intensification of use. And those words have meaning, right? And those are your regulations specifically for this context, for modifications to the stadium or to Patriot Place. Now,
They may be approved.
that's right.
May.
But it uses.
At our
it-
discretion.
Yeah, but it goes to materiality, intensification of use.
So let me ask you this. When you did the soccer, building and the new practice field and all that, that didn't get classified as a minor modification. Why not?
That was a special permit.
And why, so what's the difference between this and that?
It was residential zoning.
Part of it was, if I recall.
The entirety of it was.
Yes.
We had to get a zoning change to allow for that use. And as part of that, we got the special permit. We had a lot of engagement with the neighborhood.
Well, you
And that,
definitely
and for good reason. We've never come before you, and I can say this, and tried to pull anything in terms of, I think in this case, I truly believe that there's no material intensification of use here.
I
would
don't
not,
think- I don't think anyone's
I'll be the
suggesting
first
that-
to advise my client if we're going too far with the board.
I don't think anybody's suggesting that you're doing something you shouldn't be, and it's untoward. I think we're just, it's semantics, and it's a disagreement on this or not. So, and so when you mention the fact that, you'll do it and it's gonna be a delay, how much of a delay do you think there'll be if you go through the?
It's a month.
What's that?
It's a month.
It's a month.
And the thing that I note at the bottom, had we known this, we would have just noticed it coming out of the August 7th pre-filing meeting, which was really productive. And I think everyone here agrees. We value those meetings. We thank Catherine and Gabby for coordinating them, and it makes the projects better. So all of that has worked. And then we're surprised by this because it's different and it's going to put us off, and it is inefficient. So
It's inefficient for the craft, it's not inefficient for our town.
Well-
And that's who we represent.
Well, I'll say this, and I can appreciate that, Tracy. So as a result, if you determine this to be substantive and somehow a material intensification of use, we'll coordinate a second public hearing. We'll come back before you. And I don't think in my mind it's going to result in any benefit to the public that hasn't already resulted from the pre-filing consultation, from the reviews and the work that Woody's done, from the peer review that's ongoing on stormwater, from your discussion with us, and from the Conservation Commission hearing that's upcoming.
Can I ask a question?
Thank you. Our 20 minutes is done.
No, Dan, you're fine. I do have a question. And you definitely get grace, so don't worry. Is it unusual for Scott to walk out of a meeting of whatever, what was the date? August 7th, and not file not send this letter till September 5th?
Catherine might not know that.
No. So
I'm
this-
just trying to
this
understand
all
why
kicked out.
there's like a
So
month
the-
gap.
I'm going upstairs to get my notes from that meeting, because I write down who's at the meeting. Sometimes he's not because he has to be at training. Was he there? Okay.
So, no, this has, so the
I'm just trying to
conversation of
figure-
whether or not it was a minor modification really didn't take place until I got the application, because I was hoping there would be something in the application that would give me the
And when did you
parameters
get
and the guidelines.
And I'm not
I got
attacking,
that
I'm
on
just trying to
September-
understand.
Or no, August 29th is when we received it.
Okay.
So I
5 days
made my
later,
request
okay.
to the craft
Nope.
group within like a day or two.
Perfect.
Asking them
I'm good.
if they can provide the factors, because I was really hoping that they would be there anyway, not being familiar with the process for determining these things.
Okay, no, I was just trying to understand, that it looked like there was a 4-week gap, but if the application just came in at the end of the month, then September 5th makes sense.
Yeah.
Peter, may I? Have a question, not a question, but an observation. I actually agree with your logic on building P. I think it's totally irrelevant whether it's connected or not.
Yeah.
But when you were about to give us a percentage ratio on this proposal, on this building, what it was for the stadium itself, and you were cut off before you did.
No, he did say
So-
under 10%.
So I'll give you three numbers. This would represent about 7.5% of the total area of the stadium. For MEPA purposes, a substantive change is arbitrarily deemed 10%. All right? In your approval of Patriot Place, there's actual standard there of 15% of Patriot Place. There is none here, to Catherine's point, right? So, but, I mean, the fact is, I don't think we necessarily want to just say, because it's a large building.
I totally
It, you know, because everything here is supersized. It's a large, this is the economic driver, and there is some, to Tracy's point, we're not asking for special treatment. This is what the regulations say, right? This is the economic driver. There needs to be some efficiencies. You want to encourage this type of positive investment, and you want to be able, when we came up with these and worked with you on the regulations, and I worked with Gabby and Paige on the checklist that we submit, that was all done because we stumbled years ago. You know, we weren't consulting with people, and people were, it was coming as a surprise. And I think today, you know, I'm sitting here, we've had really good communication with everybody. And I think we picked up on what we, you know, so the process has been working. The checklist was followed. The regulations were followed. The pre-filing meeting was productive. And the plans before you, I think, reflect that. You know, auto turn plans were adjusted so that public safety officials knew turning radii and they knew clearances, right? So they have some comfort. We got everyone's comments in, and we built them in. So that's why I think it's important, and Dan talks about the precedent. We want very much for this board to feel empowered. At the same time, in my mind, this can only be...
Not too involved.
This can only be a minor modification, because we're not adding seats, we're not adding employees. We're shifting a use outside the stadium, and we're modernizing the stadium, and we should be encouraging of that.
And that's fine logic to use. I would stay away from percentages of the Stadium Bowl, because it'd have to be one hell of a proposal to get to a point where using that kind of ratio would be significant.
No, that's fair, Jeff, but I will say the percentage this board adopted for Patriot Place was a 15% percentage of a very large shopping center. So, but this is different. This is Gillette Stadium, not Patriot Place.
So here's my only concern right now. I don't think your argument's been illogical, and I can see your perspective on it. But every time we do this, that's another chit in the file that you say, oh, you did it for this, you did it for this, you did it for this. So I don't want this to become, even if we did approve it, that's the standard. Just because we approved 7 other ones, 11 other ones, doesn't mean that someday you're going to walk in here with one where we're going to say, yeah, that's not passing the smell test. And I can see Catherine's argument, and I can see Scott's argument as well. So it's not like I think they're completely off base. And I think that, you know, when you first hear the number, 150,000 square foot building, if you put it anywhere else, even if it was like on Route 1, you know, 150,000 square foot building it would be a big deal. It wouldn't get, even if it was like that warehouse that was proposed, you know.
You have to bring that up?
Well, yeah, I am bringing it up because even that, you know, doesn't get some, and partly it's because it's located where it's located. So you automatically get special consideration based on, you know, what you're saying, the economic development part, the stadium part, the relationship part, all those things are factors. But the building itself does have something to do with it. I mean, you know, the size of it does have something to do with it. And I can't disagree with your argument that it's not making a substantial impact.
I would agree.
You know, in terms of the safety stuff, the parking stuff. We're not like recreating the whole wheel. And oh yeah, you have to add another 2,000 parking spaces because you took these away. That's not the case here, whatever the number is. So, but do you hear what I'm saying? That just because we added this one to number 12 doesn't mean that the next one that comes down the pike is automatically, you know, that's a reason for us to say yes.
Agreed.
Well, maybe we as a board need to do diligence and create a standard that is more clear.
I wouldn't disagree.
Yeah, I think that's a
You know,
tough
we'd
thing.
be happy, if that would give us something to rely on, we'd be happy to work with planning staff and Catherine and Gabby on maybe a proposed list of standards, kind of like there are in the Patriot Place decision. I suspect it would include a lot of the things on the table in front of you, and we could offer some
It
concrete.
just creates clarity.
Yeah.
That being said, I'm not really in the mood to move forward with this tonight. The question I would like to put out is, do you want to continue this as we're going right now, as a minor modification, or do you want to just say, we'll do it as a filing? Because if you do it as a minor mod, we have another meeting, you lose 2 weeks, and then if it goes to filing, you lose more time. So I think we all need to do our homework, kind of wrap our arms around this a little bit more.
Ron,
Ultimately, it'll go, it'll work, but we just gotta make sure that we're going the right way.
Well, to the chairman's point, as, you know, and the entire board is kind of, we need to reset the rules, and I believe, Gabby, you believe that we potentially could be in front of this board again in 2 weeks. Is that
Yes.
doable?
Yes, I think that's doable because it's a site plan application, so it only needs to be notified in the newspaper for 1 week. So we could post it in the newspaper next week. So if we can get an application tomorrow or first thing Monday morning.
What's the date of that meeting?
26.
The 26th. We'll be away.
Oh, I'll be away.
I might not be here either. I can zoom in.
I'll be here.
Me too.
My last wedding's the 28th, so
Get married again?
6 weddings this year.
I can zoom in if needed. I don't want to delay them any further. What are you thinking, Dan?
Well, again, I understand Chairman's point of it's not a gimme every time kind of thing, but in this instance, if we could maybe come back on the 26th as a minor mod, I think that would be beneficial for us. We understand the rules change going forward, potentially, but
I think the coming back in 2 weeks is with a formal thing, not a minor mod. I don't want to speak for my colleagues, but I don't think we're going to come to an agreement on whether this is a minor mod or not. My recommendation would be file as though it's not and come back in 2 weeks. And that goes to the point of Gabby's, it needs to be posted for a week. It needs to be in the paper, right?
Right.
Right.
If it's.
I think that's our recommendation.
So if the only, Mr. Chairman, we had fully anticipated and prepared to come back in 2 weeks to provide any additional detail or respond to any questions. If it would satisfy the board and we can get notice to abutters, again, this will be redundant, but if we can do that, it sort of doesn't matter whether you deem it substantive or minor, because the only change would be, it'd be a noticed public hearing.
Right.
Right, so
Right.
we would have volunteered to do that, frankly. I still think it's a minor modification, but I'm not on the board. But I just know that there's no material intensification of use, and that's what the
Peter?
regs say. So what if we did this? What if we returned and we notice it, and it's just noticed as a modification? Because there are, I think, slight differences, Gabby, in the application requirements for full site plan versus what we're doing here for a minor.
Well, we can do a site plan modification, so you
Right.
can fill out an application, do a site plan modification. So there's a difference, with the hearing. But, the plans are the same, you can, you have the abutters list already on hand.
Yeah.
So,
But my suggestion, tell me if you disagree, is that we just notice it, and it stays, the application is in, but we just notice it as another modification.
But I think you've got to,
You request a site plan modification, not a minor modification for a site plan modification.
it's a different, it's a different request application.
But in this case, if what you want is a public hearing, you're getting that.
Yeah, and you'll have it in 2 weeks.
We also have our.
You can
our-
notice a public hearing for a minor modification.
That doesn't feel right to me.
Our peer reviewer is looking at the stormwater, and we will have, I expect to have the response from them very shortly. So we should have all of that straightened out before the meeting. So that meeting, we could have, our peer reviewers' response, their response to them, and everything buttoned up.
So what's your recommendation? We do what Peter's recommending or what you recommended? Because it sounds different.
Site plan.
I think it's the same thing, yeah.
Coming in with an application for the modification.
I just, this is the lawyer in me. This is not a major modification to the stadium site plan approval. So we want to notice this, we want to meet, if that's the concern, let's notice it. But I'm not conceding that this is major.
No,
No one's
nor are
asking
we
you to.
asking
Yeah,
you to.
yeah.
We're just, we need to.
So we're prepared to
housekeeping.
notice it.
We need to do
yeah.
housekeeping on our end to make this better going forward. I think to help you expedite what you're trying to do, doing the posted meeting and the notifications covers all the bases, allows things to go the way they kind of need to go right now, and then moving forward, we make things better. We improve our end, which gives you the guidance that you need. Right now, there's a little bit of gray area that isn't comfortable, so.
We appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
To adjourn.
Yes.
Second.
There's nothing else, right? So we need to
We have
do-
to sign.
Make motion to adjourn.
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
Aye. I beat